So I woke up like 2 hours ago, around 9. Had a daily meeting, and I'm about to head out to the gym. So I just got home from the gym and then some meetings, and it's now like about 7 p.m.ish. And for context, I've been running a software company for the past 3 years. I've just moved to London, and I've basically made this my thing. This is my full-time focus, and it has been for the past 2.5 or so years. I started it. I'm 20 at the minute. I started it when I was 17, and I wanted to basically share a little bit about how my life is. And first things first is like, it's not. I will say, 3 years into the business is not for you to expect crazy riches and stuff, and the outcomes vary drastically depending on where you start from. I've seen some people start and in a year of business get way further than I have, and I've seen other people take the same amount of time and get not as far, and so the results vary drastically. But I will say, one of the things you have to keep in mind as well is and I've started to do that this year, but basically I live on a salary and I don't live on the profits of the business, because I'd rather keep the profits to the business and let those profits get reinvested. Now, I will say, when those profits are in excess, they are worth taking out as dividends, but for the time being, I wouldn't consider, I still have plenty of avenues in which I could invest more money, and basically improve and grow the business a lot more. And so I'm basically reallocating the capital that the business outputs back into the business, and only then considering I put myself on a salary that is as low as possible, basically, as low as possible with some comfort. I don't want to be scrapping around for food and stuff. That's not the point. I still pay for nice things, and I basically live the life that I kind of want, and I made sure that I'm comfortable, but I also kind of reduced my budget to not overspend and enable the business to retain as much runway as possible, and enable it to invest as much as possible in growth opportunities. I think that's a thing that a lot of people don't envision, but it's 3 years into the business, it's not going to be spitting out millions of dollars and you can just live like a complete king and an emperor, and you're the billionaire next door now. It's you will probably fail for a while. It might take you longer than you think to reach where you are, where you'd like to be, sorry. And you probably you have to make certain concessions. At the end of the day, running a business means that the business is your priority. And that means you put money in the business before you put it on yourself. And so before you go, sure, okay, it spits out some cash, you buy some nice thing, whatever. But before you start buying yourself the real luxuries, you're putting that money back into the business. If you're smart, in my opinion. Before you start buying watches worth 10 grand, you put 10 grand into your business, into either a new hire, or new marketing, or more marketing of the same shit that you already did, which works, which is what you should be doing. A lot of people on social media flaunt crazy wealth and whatever. The reality is one of two things: either they're faking stuff, or they've been at it for more than 3-4 years, 5 years even. That's, I think, when stuff starts to get a little bit more. And the reality is, before you put 10 grand on a watch, you're gonna, if you're smart, you'll put 10 grand back into the business, which will compound more than that watch will. And I think a lot of people have this misconception that they're gonna start a business, get extremely rich, and just live amazing life and whatever. I think the reality is, there's lots of ways to do it, for sure, but the reality is it is generally wiser to kind of be a little bit more prudent about what you spend things on, and first spend back on the business before you spend on yourself. And I have recently put myself on a salary, and that was a decision I made to control and make sure that my burn rate is more regular. I know how much I'm spending more easily, whatever, and that is, I think, important in the long term. 3 years in, I think you can expect to be a lot more comfortable, but at the same time, you're not going to be living like a king, like insanely, um, like for most people, especially people who are starting out from zero. Like I've seen people who have been very successful very quickly, but those people usually have some kind of network that they start with. Or, if you start a company in your 50s and you've already got the experience, or you've got the network, or you're starting a company after being a consultant at McKinsey for 10 years, like people that can get you $1 million deals very quickly. And so it's a different game that you're playing. You start with an advantage. Whereas if you are starting from complete zero, as I was, 3 years in, like things are starting to move, the ball is rolling, things are kind of starting to work, but there's a lot of lessons that you need to learn along the way, and while you learn those, you don't, you're paying the tuition fees, but you're not making as much money as you want. And I think that's an expectation that's important to set. It's like, you got to be in this for years, and the life that you want is going to be a few years away, and you got to be okay with that. And like, I think things are starting to shape up now, but definitely I wasn't where I wanted to be 2 years ago, year and a half ago. I really wasn't. And even now I feel like I have a long way to go. Like there's a lot more to do, but yeah, I think I can only speak on the experience of being, like, give or take 3 years in, almost 3 years in, not quite, but with that experience, it is it's not some crazy level of wealth that you're gonna probably attain. Basically, is the point that I'm really making. It's more years than that. I met a guy at my gym who's been running his own hedge fund for 24 years. He's probably doing pretty well for himself. 3 years is nothing in the business game. Like, businesses have been around for a very, very long time. Like some businesses are over 100 years old, or 30, 40, 50 years old. So, 3 years, you're nothing. And so don't expect to live like a king or live like a billionaire, because that's not really going to happen. Some people, have like crazy exits after 3 years, but it's not really the norm. Usually they have some kind of network. I thought maybe that might provide some perspective for people who are curious about what it's like, essentially, to be building a business a few years in. If things go kind of to plan, what is life like, basically?